to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It's Thursday, the 28th of November, 2024. This is program number 1293 of the Lunchroom, and I'm your host, Calixte George Jr. Of course, in addition to radio on 101.1 FM, you can also get us at our website. That's rcistlucia.com. That's the URL. And you can always download our previous shows on that platform. They're available in MP3 format. You can also stream us live on Facebook, and you just have to search for the official page of Radio Caribbean International on Facebook. And please be sure to like and share that as well with your friends and family. The number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you also have the option of messaging in to our WhatsApp number. That is 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. Now, a bit of history for today. Well, back in the year 1520, the Portuguese navigator Ferdinand Magellan began crossing the Pacific Ocean. Of course, this was on his attempt to circumnavigate the world. 1814, on this day, the Times of London is first printed by automatic steam-powered presses. And those were built by German inventors Friedrich Koenig and Andreas Friedrich Bauer, making newspapers available to a mass audience. 1893, on this day, women were allowed to vote in a national election for the first time. And that happened in New Zealand in a general election there. 1919, on this day, American-born Lady Nancy Astor was elected as the first female member of the British House of Commons. 1967, on this day, the first radio pulsars detected by British postgraduate Jocelyn Bell Burnell and her supervisor Anthony Hewish and that all happened, in fact, at Cambridge University. Today, we're going to send out some birthday greetings. First, Naomi Grandison. Happy birthday to you, Naomi. And we do hope that you're having a very wonderful and blessed day. Also, to Janelle Edmond. Happy birthday to you. Hope you're having a fantastic birthday celebration. Mr. Travis Halls, you're celebrating your birthday as well. And so we're wishing you a wonderful birthday celebration and hope it's a great one indeed. And also to Miss Nadej George, happy birthday to you. Hoping you're having a fantastic birthday as well. We now move on to our dish of the day.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to our program for today. And of course, it's a very, very rainy day here in St. Lucia. The month of November thus far has certainly not disappointed when it comes to the rain. It is, in fact, supposed to be our rainiest month in the year on average. And certainly it's welcome before we actually end up into the dry season. Of course, it's not good news for a lot of individuals out there who are into construction, and it certainly is causing some delays on various projects as a result of this inclement weather. Particularly roadworks would be certainly challenged by what is going on right now. But we, of course, that is expected, and we have to certainly deal with this reality. Now, it should also point out happy Thanksgiving to all the Americans out there who are celebrating Thanksgiving today, maybe visiting the island on a cruise or whatnot. So we do hope that you're enjoying Thanksgiving in rainy St. Lucia. Now, as well, I wanted to send out some condolences to the family of the late Cuthbert Anselm, who was a long-standing teacher at the Castries Comprehensive Secondary School, and gave quite a long meritorious service at that institution, particularly in the foreign languages area, in French in particular. And so, no doubt, he'll be missed by his family. And we want to, of course, extend condolences to his sons as well at his passing. Also, the unfortunate passing of an individual who has made a significant contribution to Soufrière in the first instance and St. Lucia as well, and in particular the tourism sector of St. Lucia. And I speak of the loss of Nick Trubetskoy. And this gentleman came to St. Lucia as an architect, and he's been around for a good while, doing work for the OAS, I believe, back in the 1980s, looking at Soufrière and master planning for Soufrière, visioning for Soufrière, to come up with what was needed, because these were, of course, um, fairly early days in terms of tourism down there. And even at that point, the whole idea being proposed was actually a national park for the Petors. And of course, all the way we now have Jalousie, Sugar Beach was supposed to have been part of this national park, this iconic national park incorporating Go-Pitor, Piti-Pitor, Pitor Mitan in between, and the Jalousie and Beau estates. And that was being funded through the OAS. And I believe Nick was one of the individuals very much instrumental in developing some of these proposals, fleshing them out, as well as the proposed developments for the Soufrière town, the town of Soufrière itself. And the whole idea was that the town would have become a resort town, and how it quite often is in many of these quaint European towns. You actually have the hotels in the town. And that was part of the vision, I think, back then. Of course, he made his own mark by making an investment and putting roots down at Anne Chassenay, and getting that property up and running, and then as well working with the community, and trying to develop what was a unique product in terms of our accommodation available on the island. And of course, most famously, his work creating Jade Mountain was, of course, perhaps is one of his best known impacts in terms of tourism, not just in St. Lucia, but certainly in the Caribbean. And the whole concept of open air plans and not having that fourth wall being open to the view, and allowing a really impactful ability for a visitor, a guest staying on the property, to actually enjoy really what is critical, the view of that wonderful backdrop of beautiful sea, and then the green, and then the peaks, and then into the sky. Of course, certainly can be enjoyed very, very well from Anne Chassenay and from that ridge. And of course, so he was very much part of putting St. Lucia on the map in that regard, by providing this opportunity for ecotourism, for boutique tourism, boutique hotel properties, which went against what was a lot of what at the time perhaps was seen as the desired tourism product, which was, a massive hotel with hundreds of rooms up on against the beach, and everybody had to have a room right by the water, and that sort of thinking, which was driving a lot of tourism in other parts of the Caribbean. But because, of course, a lot of the tourism that we saw before, I mean, you were looking at islands that were pretty flat, islands like the Bahamas. And what they had was, of course, the crystal blue waters and the lovely white coral sands, right? But St. Lucia, as a Caribbean island, is a lot more than the beach. It's a lot more than of that experience. It also is part of a very big part of that is the mountains, which is of course not what you get in the Bahamas, the rainforest, and being next to the trees. So that experience, of course, which is what people have now come to really appreciate, is the real catch and the real beauty of our island, is something that he certainly understood very well. That you need not necessarily um, have to have all your rooms right along the coastline to be able to have a wonderful product. Many people who visit Bali, for example, Bali is one of the best known tourism destinations in Asia and all around the world. And the Bali experience, it's up on the bucket list of millions of people. And what are they heading across there to do? Quite often, you'd be very surprised to know that they're not, a lot of them, yes, some people might be staying along the beach, but a lot of these individuals are actually heading up into the highlands of Bali. They're heading up, past rice fields, rice paddies, and getting into these almost canyon-like type environments, with the hotels being built in along those little forested canyon areas, and like in Ubud, well, some of the best properties are in fact located in those kind of settings. And part of it too, one has to appreciate, is the cultural aspect of it. Right, a lot of people who are heading to Bali are also, and of course, if you've maybe watched that movie, is it Eat, Pray, Love? It's also a whole bit of a spiritual journey for some people. So they're looking to find sanctuary. They're looking to get away from the hustle and bustle, and they're looking to find a place of peace, a place where they can contemplate, a place where they can meditate, where they can think, and be inspired. And so in Bali, a lot of these places up in the hills actually have many of these temples. And although Bali is right in that chain of this Indonesian chain of islands, the world's most populous Islamic country, Muslim country, it actually, for the most part, has a very strong adherent to Buddhism. So a lot of these Buddhist temples are up there, and they really are very beautiful, and people want to be able to experience part of that tradition, and that's part of the charm that people are in fact looking for when they're going on. Well, what we say is a vacation, but sometimes for many people now it's an experience. It's a wellness retreat. It's a way of getting away from the norm and um, trying to find hope, trying to find opportunity to grow, spiritually. And so that's part of that product. And I think uh, even our tagline kind of marries into this idea. Let her inspire you, and people are certainly looking for that inspiration. And I think Nick Trubiscoy understood that pretty well. And of course, we want to send out our condolences to his family, of course, his wife, Carolyn, and the many people who he touched in different ways, in impacting their lives, giving them opportunities, giving them hope. And of course, the staff at Anne Chastanet Jade Mountain, who would have no doubt have come to appreciate him and his humility as well. So we definitely want to say, express our condolences to him, and of course, thank him and his family for the contribution that they have made in putting St. Lucia on the map, especially in terms of um, the tourism map that is. And Jade Mountain was just one of his visions. I know there were others that he was thinking about, Jade Sky, and he, also like the diamond area, and there were a lot of concepts certainly that he has inspired a number of people to realize what that Soufriere experience really should be, what that St. Lucian experience really, really should be in terms um, of getting that type of retreat option for visitors on island. And I should also say that it has certainly caught on um, in other Caribbean islands, and thankfully Dominica is going that route as well in terms of some of the properties that are being developed over there, almost in a similar style. Is it Secret Bay? Yeah, in Dominica, in the south, in near Soufriere in Dominica, they've developed a similar kind of product. Again, not focused on the beach necessarily, but in fact focused on the view, focused on the inspirational idea of being up in the hills, being enjoying that broad view of major landmarks in the distance. So they don't have the Peters as we have, but they got Scott's Head, and so certainly many other islands are looking at that model and using it and trying to replicate it. So all very good for the Caribbean, and of course, again, thanks to a great individual like Nick Trubiscoy. Now, uh, also wanted to send out congratulatory words to an individual who's perhaps a bit of an unsung hero in the matter of crime detection and crime fighting. And we have, of course, had a challenge over the years in terms of solving crimes, in terms of getting the evidence, in terms of proving who did what. And a certain gentleman has been part of that journey for 40 years. And he, in fact, is retiring. And I speak of Mr. Louis Murray. He worked for a very, very, very long time, sometimes on his own, later on with other help from outside, the likes of Mr. Cowie, for example. But really, he was there in the very early days of forensics in St. Lucia and has seen it certainly evolve, certainly come to a point where, in fact, now our National Forensic Laboratory has actually been recognized by the US authorities as a center of excellence, a regional center of excellence in forensic science. And science, of course, is so very important in terms of proving and in terms of probing, in terms of investigating, in terms of uh, bringing evidence, bringing certainty and high degrees of probability to the issue of proving cases and proving matters of fact. Right? And this is something that we have certainly to appreciate in terms of our judicial system. In many instances where crimes are committed, individuals obviously don't want to get caught. In very many instances, you may not even have any eyewitness accounts. in some instances, especially when you have eyewitness accounts. You might have a situation and 10 people have seen what occurred or seen, and they may have 10 different perspectives. They may be seeing it from 10 different angles, and you may have different stories. Now, some of it might, of course, align and corroborate, but not all the time. And so having scientific evidence is also really, really important, because especially in the world right now where we have fake news, especially in the world of AI, who knows, how those things are going to pan out in the long term, right? So, yes, we definitely do need to utilize a broad range of um, means of bringing forward evidence, whether it's eyewitness accounts, but certainly the scientific information allows for proving whether or not individuals may have been in certain places and may have committed certain crimes. And of course, certainly when it comes to sexual offenses and certainly, all forms of crimes, homicides, it is definitely very, very important in this regard that the necessary research is done, even if it's drug crimes. You've had situations before where people may say, well, we picked up these individuals, they were on the high seas, they were acting very suspiciously. When we got them, we saw them trying to drop things into the water. And when we got the stuff that they were dropping into the water, we saw what appeared to be white powdery substances, right? And so maybe the average person might conclude that these white powdery substances must be cocaine, right? Or must be some sort of illegal drug, but not necessarily so, right? It has to be tested. You've got to go through the process of verification that that in fact this is what you actually had, because you never know in these types of situations. These individuals may could have very well been decoys for other activities going on somewhere else, and the white powdery substances that they have may just be flour. So you've got to go through the process, and this is where, of course, it's really important to have the capabilities within our country, within partly within our country, and of course as well in the region, to be able to do the scientific analysis to prove with certainty certain things. Of course, DNA is a major field that has changed a lot of different areas of research in biomedical research, archaeology, and as well, certainly in the area of forensics. It is very important. And so having the capabilities to do that, having the capabilities to do other forms of analyses, in terms of materials that may be around, genetic materials, whether it might be ballistics, and all of that is really important. And so a lot of that work is being done by individuals who we quite often um, don't necessarily see, and we don't necessarily know what they're doing, because they're spending a lot of times in a lab or on crime scenes, or taking in evidence, and so we don't appreciate that what their contributions are, and sometimes it might be even considered selfless service in this regard. And so certainly we want to pay some recognition to those who are in fact acting in the public interest, especially given the reality right now of what we are faced with in terms of criminality. And we've seen some of the brazen types of actions, right, that are being manifested on our streets, and even in our squares, our public spaces, right? And that almost suggests this kind of brazen action that people believe that they somehow won't be caught. They somehow will get away because, they don't believe that the system is good enough to catch them, right? And so it is really important to know that we actually do have a good judicial system across the board, whether we're speaking about the police in the first instance, who have to be out there doing the patrols, doing the prevention, and ensuring that they have that equipment to be able to respond, whether it's vehicles, whether it's drones, whether it's ATVs, whether it's CCTV cameras, whether it's body cams, bulletproof vests. They have to be very, very well equipped with all the necessary kits and armaments to be able to prevent crime and to be able to detect and solve crimes. And of course, herein comes the role of the forensic lab to do the testing, to do the research, to do the analysis, to be able to back up and to prove the whole case, and sometimes to disprove too, because remember, people are sometimes accused of certain things falsely and wrongly, and again, this is why you need the ability to actually prove otherwise, right? So very, very important role in the dispensation of justice is the matter of evidence. And beyond that, of course, the ability to prosecute, the Crown Prosecution Service has to have that capacity to be able to handle the hundreds, thousands of cases at this point, and so many different matters. And of course, the judiciary, the courts themselves, the judges and staff of the courts to be able to actually handle that matter, and hopefully as well the correctional facilities staff to be able to hopefully rehabilitate and also to contain and restrict as well individuals who have in fact been proven and even in some instances awaiting trial. Of course, it's really important that that entire system works very, very well. So again, congratulations to Mr. Louis Murray as he heads into a new phase, hopefully a very exciting phase in his life, that of retirement. That's our dish of the day. When we come back, we'll take in our weather report, and then we'll head to take in some calls at this time.
The Daily Dish.
It is now time for a look at the latest weather report as of 12 noon today, made possible by Island Style Talent Bath.
Michael, where you going with all that speed?
Girl, I hear Island Style have a big Christmas sale, up to 50% off on all kind of tiles. Wall tiles, hexagon, subway, mosaics, and wood look tiles like you would see on HGTV.
You serious? I see they have a lot of new products too, like vinyl flooring, wall panels, ceiling tiles, even travertine to make your pool look top notch. That on sale too?
Yes, girl, it's everything store wide. I see they have got cleaners and sealers too. Tell me, BSL, I need those for sure.
Hey, girl, that's not a biggie, but we heading to Island Style right now.
Visit Island Style Talent Bath now in Castries, Rodney Bay, and Viewfort. Find us on social media or call 450-452 or 453-TILE. Don't miss out on this incredible Christmas sale. This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
That it is. It's now time for the 12 noon weather report. It's the 28th of November, 2024, and the forecaster this hour is Glenn Antoine. The forecast for St. Lucia valid for the next 24 hours. The winds will be blowing between the east and the east-southeast near 16 miles per hour or 26 kilometers per hour with gust near showers. And the weather, mostly cloudy to overcast with scattered showers, which may be heavy in some locations, and isolated thunderstorms. Residents and motorists in areas prone to flooding and landslides are advised to exercise extreme caution. A recap of the forecast for St. Lucia valid for the next 24 hours. The winds blowing between the east and the east-southeast near 16 miles per hour or 26 kilometers per hour with gusts near showers. And the weather, mostly cloudy to overcast with scattered showers, which may be heavy in some locations, and isolated thunderstorms. Again, a reminder that's a advisory out for residents and motorists in areas prone to flooding and landslides. You should exercise extreme caution. Marine forecast for seas in a 25-mile or 40-kilometer radius from St. Lucia. Presently, we are experiencing high tide at the Castries Harbour, the low tide will be at 21 after 8 tonight. And the Vieux Bays high tide will be at 26 before 3 this afternoon. The low tide will be at 12 minutes before 10 tonight. The sea is moderate to locally rough. The waves and northeasterly swells 5 to 7 feet, the same as 1.5 to 2.1 meters. In open waters, small craft operators and seabathers should exercise caution due to above normal seas. Please be guided. For the Lesser Antilles, mostly cloudy to overcast with scattered showers, which may be heavy in some locations and isolated thunderstorms. On now to the tropical weather outlook. Moisture and instability associated with a trough system will continue to cause cloudiness, scattered showers, and thunderstorms over the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. A light to moderate easterly wind flow will continue over the Eastern Caribbean region during the next few days. Tropical cyclone formation not expected over the tropical Atlantic during the next 48 hours. Again, moisture and instability associated with a trough system will continue to cause cloudiness, scattered showers, and thunderstorms over the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. And light to moderate easterly wind will continue across the Eastern Caribbean region during the next few days. We're not expecting any tropical cyclone formation, but a recap of some of the advisories: small craft operators and seabathers, you should exercise caution, and that is due to above normal seas. And residents and motorists in areas prone to flooding and landslides are advised to exercise extreme caution. And that is the official weather report. Thank you, Glenn, for the update. Join us again in the morning at around 6:30 here on the station is when our next official report is due. The weather was made possible by Island Style Talent Bar.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Michael, where you going with all that speed?
Girl, I hear Island Style have a big Christmas sale, up to 50% off on all kind of tiles. Wall tiles, hexagon, subway, mosaics, and wood look tiles like you'll see on HGTV.
You serious? I see they have a lot of new products too, like vinyl flooring, wall panels, ceiling tiles, even travertine to make your pool look top notch. That on sale too?
Yes, girl, it's everything store-wide. I see they have got cleaners and sealers too. Tell me, BSL, I need those for sure.
Girl, that's not a biggie, but we heading to Island Style right now.
Visit Island Style Talent Bath now in Castries, Rodney Bay, and Viewfort. Find us on social media or call 450-452 or 453 Tile. Don't miss out on this incredible Christmas sale.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. And it is about 21 minutes to go before the hour of 2 o'clock. Of course, the number to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, it is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046, as well as our WhatsApp number, that is 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. Now, yesterday, we began a conversation regarding climate financing, and that was coming out of the closing of the COP29 meeting, the climate change talks, the 29th one annual meeting. This one happened in the capital of Azerbaijan, Baku, and it nearly collapsed, in fact, because of the matter of pretty much having the richer countries, developed countries, who were effectively the biggest beneficiaries of beneficiaries of what caused climate change, right? That whole process of industrialization, and who are the ones who use the most carbon or fossil fuels, that they should have a responsibility to support the efforts of the developing countries who have less means, but of course must undertake significant investments, both to reduce the rate at which the temperature of the world is increasing by they themselves shifting away from fossil fuels and towards other forms of energy, as well as recognizing that even with that shift, if it doesn't happen fast enough, there will certainly be some significant costs to those countries because of damages to because of these changes to the environment, changes to the climate, and as well the means by which they have to adapt to this changing climate, this changing world. So those talks nearly collapsed, and eventually there was a deal struck of sorts, and it has not really gone down really well with a lot of developing world countries, because it is seen as woefully inadequate given the lists that have been put forward of things that have to be done by the developing world in respect of climate change, and things that they will suffer as a result of climate change. So there's a clip we have which kind of captures part of this sentiment and part of the issue regarding that. It may take a particular line because it's actually coming from a German source, I believe, DW. Let's take a listen at this time.
Nearly 200 nations have just approved a $300 billion a year climate deal at the COP29 talks in Azerbaijan. Now, this is aimed at helping poorer developing nations deal with the effects of climate change, with wealthy countries leading the payments. The deal comes after 2 weeks of fraught negotiations that dragged well into overtime. Developing nations were unhappy with what was on the table, saying they believed their proposals were being ignored at the COP29 summit and that they needed a much higher amount. Experts estimate that climate vulnerable countries need more than $1 trillion a year to mitigate the impacts of global warming. We can speak now to DW climate reporter Tim Schauenberg, who's at the talks in Baku. Tim, good to see you. Tell us, what can you explain to us about this deal? What's just happened?
Well, what just happened is that we're seeing a lot of facilitation in this plenary. This day really reads like a thriller if it wasn't about the future of this planet, about the climate crisis, this existential climate crisis. There were suspensions of negotiations today. We were close to a no deal. Parties walked out, parties walked in, then we were back again. And now the deal is there. Maybe you hear the parties in the plenary behind me cheering. There is a deal on the table, which was just agreed to, $300 billion, which should be used from the developed countries to the developing countries, used for climate protection. It is much less than they have asked. They have been asking for $1 trillion. That's what they need to protect the climate in the future, to manage the green transition. It is much less, and to be very clear, it's also not enough. It's just enough to balance inflation and increasing costs for them. It's not a deal that everybody would make everybody happy, but it is the minimal consens here. It shows multilateralism is working, even though it is very difficult to come to an agreement here. But we have a deal which is definitely better than a no deal.
Yeah, that's right, Tim. Now, tell us, what have some of the reactions been to this deal, given these divisions that you've just been talking about?
Yeah, we just heard India, for example, which has been the last stone or the last opposer of some of the points in this deal. They were opposing, for example, that also developing countries are invited or encouraged to voluntarily chip in money to finance climate protection. Their reaction was a reminder to developed countries that they are in the lead, that they need to take the action, that they are responsible for climate change, and that this is an agreement, a political agreement, which is based on trust. There is no court behind it. There's no legislation behind it, which obliges the parties to let action follow. And they said, well, now you must show that this deal was not done for nothing. Now you have to show that the trust we put in you is a good investment.
Yeah,
that was India. We
Tim,
also see. Yeah, sorry.
Let's talk about what this $300 billion dollars a year mean. What will this money concretely mean for developing countries as they battle the impacts of climate change?
Yeah, these $300 billion mostly mean that they will be used to facilitate the green transition, to mitigate and to reduce the country's carbon footprint, which means, for example, green energy, solar, wind. A smaller part can also be used for adaptation measures. It can be used to subsidize the green transition, to give a push to companies in those countries, facilitate measures that those countries, developing countries, could not afford by themselves.
There's DW climate reporter Tim Schauenberg speaking to us from Baku, Azerbaijan, shortly after nearly 200 nations approve a $300 billion a year climate deal at these COP29 talks to benefit developing nations. Tim Schauenberg, thank you.
All right. I think that gives you a bit of a sense as to the issues regarding that deal that was signed off on by COP29, and clearly not where the majority of the world actually wants to be. Largely, the responsibility for payment for those funds falls to what are known as Annex 2 countries under the Climate Accord. And I think it's about 23 countries, largely the wealthy countries of the world, who are within that list of Annex 2. It will include Australia, Austria, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, the European Economic Community, Finland, France, Germany, Greece, Iceland, Ireland, Italy, Japan, Luxembourg, Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, Turkey, United Kingdom, as well as the United States of America. And the largest of those countries, both by population as well as the impact on the climate, is that of the United States. And that, of course, is where the challenge lies. The United States political system has meant that one party is a little bit more pro COP and pro supporting the matters of, at least in terms of what they voice, of course, supporting action against climate change. And that is the Democrats. And of course, we now have a president-elect, that of Donald Trump, who is pretty much not a supporter of a lot of the climate action that we're seeing. He is not a supporter of cutting back in terms of U.S. oil and gas production. He has not been a fan, has not been he's been a skeptic, we can say, of anything to do with climate change. And already we had challenges with the United States being able to meet its commitments under what was existing already, which was an agreement for $100 billion per year, which again was woefully inadequate. And even then, that was not being met. So moving forward, it is going to be interesting to see whether, in fact, there's even going to be, although the ambition has now on paper become higher, whether, in fact, the actual commitments made are going to be lower. And of course, as we are speaking about the matter of Donald Trump, we've been hearing quite a lot of his pronouncements regarding what his term is going to look like and what he can and cannot do and what he wants to do. We've heard of quite a lot of issues being raised by the leaders of Mexico, the leaders of China, the leaders of Canada, in response to what he is saying are going to be 25% tariffs from day one once he becomes president on January the 20th. And we, of course, will have to wait and see, because that has definite implications with respect to us here in the Caribbean, given our very strong dependence on imports from the United States of America. What if whatever is getting more expensive in the US is going to become more expensive right here in St. Lucia and in the Caribbean as a result? It only stands to reason. And so that's all the issue of what is really going to happen come January 20th and what he can and cannot do. There's actually an interesting Wall Street Journal piece, a clip on it, and it speaks to the whole matter of what can Trump do or not do when he is in fact elected, when he in fact actually takes in that post come January the 20th. So we're trying to get that for you lined up. And as I said, it comes from the Wall Street Journal. Let's take a listen to this one.
It will be my great honor to pardon the peaceful January 6 protesters.
But some are not.
We will have no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security benefits for our seniors.
Here's what Trump can and can't do as president in his second term. Let's start with Trump's biggest plan, immigration.
On day one of my administration, I will terminate every open border policy of the Biden administration, and we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history.
Any presidential administration can do a significant number of things with regards to how people are processed at the border. That doesn't mean that the president can unilaterally override current laws. And those laws require that the United States, when presented with certain claims by migrants at the border or inside the United States, they have to be heard in a certain way with a certain type of process.
Trump hasn't outlined a plan yet, but the president controls immigration enforcement and can decide who they prioritize to deport. So Trump can change the current policy of prioritizing unauthorized people who pose a threat to anyone in the country unlawfully.
That still doesn't mean that 11 million people can be removed. The Obama administration accomplished the highest number of internal removals, and that was with the enforcement apparatus of the United States going at full bore. So you can imagine the number of resources that need to be committed as a practical matter to something that even approximates the millions that the Trump administration is talking about.
To hire more people, to build detention centers, to pay for transportation, all the logistics of increased deportations would require congressional appropriation. He could ask local law enforcement to assist, although only if they volunteer and if state law even allows. And then local departments would have to use their own budget and resources. Trump has also floated the idea of using the military.
The United States military is forbidden by statute from engaging in domestic law enforcement.
And there's not really any good way for presidents to get around that. So the president can say there's a national emergency and it doesn't matter. It doesn't change the fact that he can't use federal troops to enforce law.
But as commander-in-chief, Trump can organize the top of the military, like generals.
And we have a military that's not woke. You may have a few people on the top that are woke, and we're going to get rid of them so damn fast, your head's going to explode.
The president can get rid of generals. The president's a little more tied on replacing them. So Congress has a say in who replaces those generals.
We're going to take the Department of Education, close it. I'm going to close it.
The Department of Education was created by Congress, and it can only be closed by Congress. It mainly handles student loans and enforces civil rights programs like Title IX, which protects students from gender discrimination.
I will keep men out of women's sports.
The president has the authority, and the Secretary of Education have the authority to rewrite the Title IX regulations. The Trump administration rewrote the Title IX regulations. The Biden administration rewrote them again. And so I expect we are going to see new Title IX regulations within his first year.
The department allocates money to schools through these civil rights programs, like for students with disabilities, and doesn't actually set curriculum.
I will sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content onto our children.
The reasons that the department can cut off federal funding are well defined by law. And so to tie new policy priorities to federal funding, you would have to pass new legislation. It's important to underscore that if they were to do that, it would represent a sort of very significant deviation from a long-held principle that the federal government should not have a say over curriculum.
Starting on day one, I will approve new drilling, new pipelines, new refineries, new power plants, new reactors, and we will slash the red tape.
All he can do is tell EPA to reconsider those rules. And then it will go through, it's likely to be a multi-year process.
For example, in his first term, Trump directed the EPA to revise or withdraw the Clean Power Plan. It wasn't repealed for more than 2 years.
We will drill, baby, drill. And I'm going to cut your energy prices in half within 12 months.
Trump does have the authority to direct departments like the Interior to allow for more drilling. But not only do those plans have to go through the same long process, it's a private industry that drills and sets the price of oil.
And of course, even if he approves it, that doesn't mean industry is going to think it's, economically viable for them.
I can make anybody do anything through the use of tariffs, and the president has the right to impose the tariffs.
The Constitution gives the power of setting tariffs to Congress, but in the 70s, they gave power to the president to set tariffs for specific retaliatory or emergency reasons.
It was never probably contemplated to be against an entire country, but it could be.
Trump wants to put tariffs on China and Mexico.
Every damn thing that they sell into the United States is going to have like a 25% tariff until they stop drugs from coming in.
As a retaliatory move, he has that authority delegated to him by the Congress.
But this trade lawyer thinks some of Trump's broader proposals to put blanket tariffs on every import from every country.
I'm going to impose a tariff on the outside world. A small 10% tariff on foreign-made products will allow massive tax cuts for working families.
Would see some legal challenges.
If he doesn't explain it, he doesn't declare an emergency, he just says, well, I'd like to see tariffs today of 20% on all countries, all goods. I think the court would say, no, under the Constitution, that is in fact given to the Congress of the United States. You can't do it.
For most of Trump's objectives for a second term, there are limitations, checks and balances within the process or directly from Congress. But most experts believe he'll follow a similar playbook as his first term, implement the policy first and have the courts decide the legality of it later.
And just go ahead and do things and not worry much about whether they're legal.
I think the bet that the Trump administration is making is that eventually their views will be vindicated by perhaps a Supreme Court that is friendly to their views.
The attempted efforts by Trump to promote his policy agenda through the power of the executive, I think remains to be seen.
And of course, as I mentioned, that piece coming from the Wall Street Journal, bringing a lot of questions to light, of course, and the whole principle within the United States of separation of powers has always been to ensure that no one individual or no one branch of government no one individual has absolute power, right? And so you can't be the king and the prime minister and the, you can't be the lawmaker and you can't be the judge all at the same time. And so there is this principle, of course, of separating executive powers, legislative powers, and judicial powers. And it appears that, of course, Mr. Trump is looking to perhaps try to challenge some of these principles by pretty much going at it in terms of taking certain decisions, trying to push those decisions through, even though they may not necessarily be within his remit or his powers to do so, taking away powers that are really vested into the Congress. And then, of course, hoping that later on, the judges that he has appointed will somehow side with him in the long run. So it is a very interesting time because we do know that he has, of course, a more welcoming Congress. It's the Republican Party is going to be in control of both the House and the Senate, and there is a very good chance that he is going to be able to get through with a number of his judicial appointments. So we'll have to wait and see, as with many things which are coming soon enough, come January the 20th. But that's all the time we have for today here at the Lunchroom. We do hope that you had a good one, and we'll be back again tomorrow, God willing, for another program. You can join us then.